Over a year ago, when I was reading Days at the Murasaki bookstore and I made a video about reading translated works, I stated,
I'm not a huge fan of 800 plus page books. In my opinion, in most books, if you can't say it in 350 pages or less, you'll most likely lose my attention.
By the way, Days at the Murasaki bookstore is a fantastic book, and I definitely recommend that anyone who hasn't read it, read it, because you can read it in a day and it's super fun and cozy. But oh my, has my opinion on duration of books changed. I have become enamored with the idea of longer books. The feeling you get when you finish them is like no other. Now, I'm not strictly talking about 1,000 page books, but just longer stories in general. This can be a 800 plus page book or even a book series or both. Now, don't get me wrong, some of my favorite books are still 300 page literary fiction books. For instance, Murakami's Norwegian Woods and Months After has still been lingering in my mind. But it still has a different feeling. With longer books or series, when done right, which when done right is a key component, because just because something is longer in duration doesn't mean that it's better or will have the same emotional resonance. And this completely changes the feeling, because when done right, it ends up feeling like you lived with the characters instead of through them. Now, I don't want to say you have to read longer books and that they are better. I was more interested in the psychological difference between experiencing a shorter format story versus a longer format story. This is an idea that transcends to other mediums, with film versus television shows. In one of the alternatives, you end up spending way more time in the world and with its characters. Another medium that I think shows the experience of taking in a longer story is video games, where it blurs the line between the player and the characters, where you are actively participating in the story and you become one of the characters through controlling them. What made me think of this is I literally just completed Undertale a couple days ago. By the way, fantastic character writing in that game. But I noticed this same feeling that I get when I finish a longer book when I finish that game, which video games are a medium where you can spend upwards to 20 hours with the characters in the story. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I finish a longer story in either a 1,000 page book or a book series, it usually evokes a strong emotion. The emotion isn't completely negative, or is it sentimental, but it's rooted in a psychological truth that the more time we spend with a narrative, the more embedded it becomes in our own internal world. Whether it's a 1,000-page novel or a long format TV series or a sprawling video game, these extended narratives do more than entertain, and there's something about investing time into it. Since time is the key component in the difference of feelings after finishing a story, which is also kind of a crazy thought because time can work differently in books, whether through it being non-linear or using flashbacks. But that's a whole different topic, because that explains subjectivity and how different people experience the world, and that's what writing is showing off someone's view of the world. But this brings up the idea of the narrative transportation theory, which describes the mental state of being so absorbed in a story that one temporarily loses the awareness of the real world. The longer we remain in this transported state, the harder it becomes to return. And sometimes it doesn't snap back immediately, and ultimately a different emotional register. This is why finishing a longer novel leaves us in a fog of emotional residue. Contrast this with reading about a 200-page story or watching a film. These forms of storytelling can feel a bit more abrupt. Even though they feel satisfying, there's less time for attachment, less emotional momentum. Also, they are usually designed to evoke a specific feeling, leaving an echo that isn't the same in the mind. So in short, longer stories become intertwined with us as we go through our day and unravel over a longer period of time. Where a shorter story is abrupt and can be consumed in one sitting, it is seen more as a hiccup rather than going alongside of us. Longer stories are accompanying us. Not to go too deep, but I kind of feel like this is what I like most about my reading vlogs. You get to see me experience the story along with my everyday routine. It's kind of like an old song that you really liked and you remember exactly what you were doing when you first experienced it, and basically what you were doing at that time in your life. There's also the idea of parasocial bonds, which are often brought up when talking about celebrities, but I think it's also applicable to characters in books. They are basically just one-sided relationships relationships where an individual develops a strong sense of connection or familiarity with that person or character. The thing with books and stories is they end. So once there is an absence of a character, it can create something similar to grief or sadness because they're gone. I also feel like there could be an element of when we say we miss a book when it ends, what we're really saying is we miss the version of ourselves that was immersed in this story. The person who lived alongside that narrative, that saw the world with each turn of a page.